This is the Crisscross Show. I am back with a new episode. I know it's been about 2 months, maybe late May, early June when I last uploaded, but I am here. I'm back. NBA playoffs are starting. The bubble regular season is kind of over. So this episode is going to be dedicated to my playoff predictions and teams' keys to success of beating each other in the first round. So enjoy. All right, so to start, so obviously on Monday at 12:30 or 1:30, the Jazz will play the Nuggets to kick off the playoffs officially, finally. We've been waiting for the playoffs since March, right? So the first game is the Jazz and the Nuggets, and to say the least, the Jazz, in my opinion, have no chance of beating the Nuggets. After losing Bojan Bogdanovic, I think that's his name. He's a 20-point scorer. He was their second leading scorer, I think. So losing him was a huge blow. Obviously, it showed. Utah's bubble record was 3-5. The Nuggets were 3-5 as well, but they wanted to keep the 3 seed. They were happy where they were at. They didn't want to play Dallas. They didn't want to play who came out of the play-in tournament, so they didn't really care about seeding. I think they were just more trying to do rotations. I mean, that's what a lot of the top tier teams are doing. So my prediction, I go with the Nuggets in 5. I think the Nuggets are just a better team. MPJ, Michael Porter Jr., definitely showed off in the bubble. He scored 37 points. I think one was his highest. 37, 36, one or the other. I do think the Nuggets, they have strength in numbers. Obviously, Jamal Murray didn't play that much. Jokic didn't play that much. Bol played a lot. They just got more people. They got more players. Utah, I mean, other than Jordan Clarkson, there's who really comes out of the bench and who really scores. I think Utah's going to get their points from their starters. And throughout a series, starters, if you play a short rotation, they are going to get very tired. So I give the Nuggets in 5. If Utah were to win, it's going to be because Donovan Mitchell scores 25 plus points per game. They're going to win the rebound battle. And that's all. I really think that's all really Utah needs to win. I mean, just win the rebound battle. Donovan Mitchell needs to go off. He needs to be a freak of a scorer. But I don't really see that happening. That's why I give the Nuggets the edge. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. showed off. Bol showed he can be in the rotation. They beat the Jazz already in the bubble. It wasn't overtime. It was kind of like a meaningless game, but still they played their starters, and it was a pretty good game. And also, Nuggets have strength in numbers, so that's why I give the Nuggets the edge in 5. All right, moving on to the second game of Monday, which is the Brooklyn Nets versus the defending champions Toronto Raptors. Just going to say it right now, I think the Raptors are going to win in 5. I do think the Brooklyn Nets will steal a game. There is no home court, so you can't really say, where are they going to steal the one game from, at home or away? They're all neutral sites. I do think Brooklyn will steal a game. Brooklyn was 5-3 in the bubble. They did compete with a lot of teams. I know notably they lost to the Portland Trail Blazers, and they had a chance to win the game. I'm not sure who they exactly beat right now. I'm kind of drawing a blank on who they beat, but they did beat some notable teams. I think keys for them, ultimately they have no chance of beating the defending champions. For me, I think Brooklyn's keys are have fun and get rebounds. I mean, I think Jarrett Allen needs to get the boards. I think he needs at least 15 plus rebounds per game to give the Brooklyn Nets even a chance to extend the series to 6 or 7 games. Raptors obviously were 7-1 in the bubble. They are strength in numbers. Spicy P is a key. If he can at least score 20 plus points per game, if he can maybe bump up his average of 23 points to get 23 points per game to about 25, then Raptors can win in 5 or 4. Also control the pace. I know they play a lot of different defenses. That's what makes them very hard to beat. That's why they've been so successful, because of all the different defenses they throw at teams, which obviously they can control the pace with their fast pace. And I think the Raptors in 5, I really see Brooklyn not winning this series at all. All right, third game of Monday, 76ers and Celtics. I'm just going to say this right now. Celtics in 5. I wouldn't be surprised if the series goes to 6, nor would I be surprised if the Celtics sweep. The 76ers obviously went 4-4 in the bubble, and then the Celtics went 5-3. Again, I said this before, some teams that already knew they were locked in didn't really care. They were just playing to play. 76ers obviously lost Ben Simmons. That's a huge loss. That's another reason why I'm not taking my favorite to come out of the East at the beginning of the year, the 76ers, to win at all. I can't see them winning this series at all unless there's an injury to an important Celtic player, or Joel Embiid just goes full monster. Keys, if the 76ers were to win, in my opinion, would be feed Embiid. Tobias Harris stepping up huge, and their 3-ball falling. I just think those are the keys for the 76ers to win. We might get one of the 3 that I just mentioned, but if they get 3 out of the 3, I see them winning in 6 or 7. Celtics, obviously no Simmons helps them a lot. They're obviously asking a lot out of what's his name, Shake Milton. So they're asking a lot out of him. They're asking a lot out of the 76ers bench also. So I give the Celtics the edge there. I do think the Celtics, if they win the rebound battle, contain Embiid from rebounds, they will probably end this series in probably 4. Definitely 5 for sure if they share the ball. I know they had 4 players averaging 20 or more. I think it was Hayward, Tatum, Brown, Walker. It was 15 or 20 points per game. So they share the ball, and I think that's the Celtics' keys to win the series. All right, moving on to the Mavericks and the Clippers, obviously to kind of close out the first day of the playoffs. I give the Clippers in 6, and I can easily say Clippers in 5. Again, the Mavericks, the only real experience they have is JJ Barea and Seth Curry. I could be missing a couple of others, but I give the Mavericks losing in 6 because I just think that the Clippers, obviously they've been waiting for the whole playoffs to start since obviously they built that team back in July. Everyone's been saying, Clippers don't care about the regular season. They've been wanting to play in the playoffs all year. So now here's the playoffs. I do give the Clippers winning in 6, obviously, because this is going to be Luka's first time in the playoffs. This is going to be Kristaps Porzingis' first time in the playoffs. But again, if the Mavericks were to win this series, it's going to be because of Luka Doncic, Luka Magic. I do think if he goes off for at least 30 points per game, he can extend this series to 6 or 7 games and possibly win. Kristaps Porzingis needs to play huge. I know he hasn't been as great. He hasn't had many 20-point games, but again, he needs to step up huge if the Mavericks are going to win, because if Kristaps plays amazing, I don't think there's anybody that can match up to him. You can put Zubac in him. You can put Montrezl Harrell, but Montrezl Harrell's barely coming back. So, if Kristaps Porzingis plays out of his mind, because we already know what we're going to get from Luka Doncic, we just need to know what we're going to get from, obviously, Kristaps, and obviously the 3-ball, making big shots. I know they have Seth Curry. They have a bunch of other 3-point shooters that can definitely make some shots. So obviously big-time shots for the Mavericks is going to be huge down the stretch, especially in a close game. They need a closer. I do think Seth Curry can provide some big-time shots for them. Obviously, the Clippers, my pick for this series, mainly because of defense. They were one of the best defensive teams, even though, Kawhi and Paul George never really played together that much. I think they've played less than 20 games all year together or something like that, something crazy like that. Playoff P, again, he said it a couple years ago that it's Playoff P. He exists. I've never seen him really, other than those Indiana series when he was PG-24, not PG-13. And then obviously making stops down the stretch. If you're in a close game against Dallas and Luka has the hot hand, you're going to have to make those stops. You're going to have to make, Luka take some tough shots or make him pass the ball. So making stops is another key to the Clippers winning the series. And that's my prediction for at least the first day of the NBA playoffs restart. All right, now getting into the second half of the NBA bubble playoffs, Magic and the Bucks are going to kick things off Tuesday, August 18th at 12 or 1 p.m. In my honest opinion, I don't give the Magic a chance to beat the Bucks just because the Bucks have the eventual MVP. He's not my MVP vote, but he's going to win the MVP. Giannis. The Bucks and the Magic did have the exact same record in the bubble, which was 3-5. Obviously, a lot of people say that the higher seeded teams didn't really care, so that's why their records weren't the prettiest of things. You know, the Bucks went 3-5, Lakers went 3-5. You know, Thunder went 4-4. All those other teams, you know, Nuggets went 3-5. So, you know, I give the Bucks ultimately the win in 5. I don't think any team in the first round is going to sweep in the bubble because there's no home court. Anybody can get hot. You can't really feed off energy. Yeah, you can look at the virtual crowd, but what's so much that, you know, maybe 100 plus people in that, you know, virtual fans can do. But yeah, I give the Bucks in 5. I do think the Magic might steal a game because the Bucks will just be like, oh, we're going to beat this team. I think they can steal a close game. But if the Magic were to win, no, this is my side. If the Magic were to win, it'd be close the paint. They closed the paint successfully. Obviously, we know what happened with Giannis last year when he faced the Toronto Raptors when they closed the paint on him. We all know what that happened. So if they close the paint successfully, force Giannis to kind of pass it out, force Giannis to get in foul trouble, they'd be successful. Rebounds, getting the rebounds. We know Brook Lopez can get some boards when he wants to. We know Giannis can get boards when he wants to. Obviously, keep the Bucks in foul trouble. Make them foul you early. Make Brook Lopez get in foul trouble. Make Giannis get in foul trouble. Make Chris Middleton get in foul trouble. Make their best players get in foul trouble early, so you have a chance to kind of face their bench, face players that are going to be forced to make plays. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen for the Magic, which is also why I think the Bucks are going to ultimately win. Now, the Bucks' keys is obviously making threes. That's something they've been really good at this year. Giannis averaging more than 25 points per game. And rebounds. You know, you win the rebound battle. Typically, you win the game. Obviously, unless you're the Houston Rockets and you've somehow done it strangely, then you can win the game. But I think winning the rebound battle, you ultimately win the game. So I give the Bucks in 5. All right, now moving on to the Heat and the Pacers. Obviously, a very much anticipated series, probably the second most anticipated series of this playoffs, just because of the TJ Warren and Jimmy Butler fiasco going on. I give the Heat in 6. And the reason why I give the Heat in 6 is because, you know, they played each other in the bubble. Obviously, they were 1-1 versus each other in the bubble. But the second one, you didn't really feel much. You didn't really feel them trying just because the seeds were already kind of made. And there's no real home court advantage. So they didn't really care who won, who didn't. But the first game, you felt it. They contained TJ Warren. They played some good defense. They made some big shots. I think the Heat are ultimately going to win in 6 just because, again, there's no home court. So it's going to be hard to, you know, some games might be hard to feed off of, you know, the momentum from the previous game just because there's really no talk in the crowds. My keys for the Heat to ultimately win this series is to make threes. Obviously, that means Duncan Robinson. Personally, my favorite Heat player, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Andre Iguodala, Goran Dragic, making shots, making threes. I think if they make threes, they're ultimately going to win this series in 5 or 4. Obviously, containing TJ Warren. We all know bubble TJ Warren has been, a fan favorite this year. I think if they contain him to less than 20 points per game, which it's possible, then, they're ultimately going to win this series. Obviously, defense. The Heat are known for defense. They are also known to go on cold streaks. So, if they can rely on their defense to kind of help them out when they go on their cold streaks, then they can ultimately, contain the Pacers and win. The Pacers, if they were to win, this is what I think needs to happen. TJ Warren going off, obviously averaging 25 or more points per game. Sharing the ball, Victor Oladipo, TJ McConnell, Miles Turner, those guys stepping up big. We all know the Sabonis loss was huge for them. If they had Sabonis, I'd probably give the Pacers the edge in maybe 7, but they lost Sabonis. Obviously, rebounds is another thing, keeping Bam out of the rebound, keeping Bam out of the paint, getting rebounds, obviously giving the Pacers a chance to go down the court. So those are my keys for each team to win. Ultimately, I think the Heat are going to win in 6, just because I think the Heat, in all, are a completely better team. They're better defensively. They got more defenders than the Pacers do. And I just think that the Heat have a little bit more experience in the playoffs than the Pacers do. Thunder and Rockets is going to be an exciting series because Russell Westbrook's old team, the team that was supposed to be rebuilding this year, is in the playoffs. And they are the 5th seed to the Rockets' 4th seed. Now, the Thunder went 4-4, and the Rockets went 4-4 in the bubble. This is going to be a good series. I think it's going to be a long series. I wouldn't be surprised if it went 7 games. Rockets have the home court. Doesn't really matter at this point because the court looks the same. There's no real home court advantage or anything. I think the Thunder are going to win in 6 if Russell Westbrook misses a couple games. They did say Russell Westbrook could miss the first 2 or 3 games. That'll be huge. I think that if Russell Westbrook misses the first 3 games, the Thunder will be up 2-1. Again, I think the Thunder will win, and I think the Thunder will win because of Chris Paul playing like a point god that he is. I think if Chris Paul plays amazing, scores at least 18 points per game, averages about 8 or 9 assists, then they will ultimately win the series because he knows how to control a game. Also, perimeter defense. Obviously, that's asking a lot out of their defenders like SGA, Dennis Schroeder, Andre Roberson, Steven Adams, protecting the perimeter. Obviously, we know the Rockets love to go small ball. We know they either love to shoot threes or make layups and dunks. That's it. They don't score in the mid-range. You can run them off the 3-point line, but you're going to have to close that paint. And ultimately, the Rockets love to spread the floor for James Harden and Russell Westbrook to make some layups and dunks. Thunder are going to need to win with their bench also. I know the Rockets in the playoffs love to go to a 6-man to a 7-man rotation. So the Thunder need to, those minutes that James Harden sits on the bench, those minutes that Russell Westbrook's on the bench, you're going to need to take advantage. Yes, I understand that the Rockets love to play either Harden and Westbrook. Either way, like they're always playing in at some point. So you're going to need to take advantage of a time when James Harden goes to the bench and force Russell Westbrook to be a shooter. So I think that's what the Thunder ultimately need to do. Obviously, the bench needs to be huge for the Thunder. The Rockets, if they were to win the series, it's going to be because James Harden averages 30 or more points per game. Russell Westbrook needs to be a monster. I get it. He's injured yet again. But if he comes back, he needs to play like an absolute monster. And I do think he can possibly do that if he comes back healthy. Obviously, making threes. We know that one playoff series when they missed 27 threes in a row, that can't happen, especially against a Thunder team like this. A Thunder team that's so good chemistry-wise. They need to make their shots. And if they're going to be trusting the 3-ball, they're going to need to make those shots because we saw them against the Bucks. We saw them against the Mavericks. We know they can, when they want to, they can make shots. And when they make shots, you can't count them out. They were down 7 against the Mavericks and ultimately win in overtime. They were down 7 with a minute to go, and typically teams were like 0-212 when that happens. And they somehow ended up tying the game, going overtime, and winning the game. So you can't count them out if they're making their threes. And that's ultimately why I think the Rockets need to make their threes to win this series. But I'm going to give the Thunder in 6 just because if Russell Westbrook sits out, 3 or more games, I can't see them really winning if they contain James Harden. And that's my opinion on the Thunder and Rockets. All right, so this one's my favorite series. It's the Blazers and the Lakers. Obviously, we saw the Blazers, and I saw this on Twitter. I saw someone tweet this saying that the Blazers, I'm sorry, went to like a strict 6-man rotation. I know they went Trent Jr., Lillard, McCollum, Nurkic, Carmelo, and they switched between Sonia and Gabriel. So they switched between those guys. I know they played 9 men, but ultimately it was mostly 6 if you really see the score if you see the box score with all the minutes they all played. The starters played heavy minutes. Zach Collins got hurt. Who knows if he's going to miss some of the series or if he's going to be limited in the series. All right, and this is kind of another thing. I might get into this segment very, very long. Just because I think that the Blazers will steal a game. I'm going to give the Lakers in 5. Again, I'm not giving anyone a series sweep in this bubble just because there's no real home court advantage, just because there's really nothing to feed off of. I'm going to give the Blazers losing in 5 because after seeing them struggle with Memphis, after seeing them struggle with Brooklyn has no one but, a pack of ketchup and mustard on their team. I did see the Blazers struggle against the Clippers bench. I did see the Blazers struggle a little bit against, I think when they played the Rockets, they struggled a little bit. They just barely edged off. A lot of their games were close. And a lot of it was luck. Some missed calls, some ridiculous shot making. I think the Lakers will ultimately trample them if they do go to that 6-man rotation that they did go to, because throughout a series, you got no one to guard LeBron. You got no one to guard Anthony Davis. You really have to worry about, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. They play defense optionally. We know that they've scored a lot, but they've also given up a lot of points. They've been in a lot of close, high-scoring games. I think the Lakers will end up swallowing them up because the Lakers have JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, who they can throw at. They have Anthony Davis, LeBron James. They have Alex Caruso, who's playing pretty good. Kyle Kuzma is playing good defense. You got all these guys, Markieff Morris, who can play. Danny Green, hopefully he shows up. KCP, a pretty good defender. I mean, that's 8-9 men right there that they can play. Not to mention Quinn Cook, who has championship experience. J.R. Smith, who has championship experience, who can be thrown in there for defense every once in a while. I mean, THT, their rookie, who's been playing really, really good so far. I mean, their whole team, yes, they're missing Avery Bradley. Yes, they're missing Rondo for some perimeter defense. But ultimately, if they're going to play 6 to 5 guys, and they're, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are going to be playing 42 plus minutes per game, they're going to get tired throughout the series. And if the series goes long, it's going to favor the Lakers because they have more players to kind of go off of than, the Blazers do. The Blazers, yes, you can say, they got all these young studs that can show up, but I haven't seen them show up. I do think the Blazers will split the first 2 games, but after that, I think the Lakers will start swallowing them up as the series gets longer, as Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum become more fatigued. But I think if the Blazers were to win this series, it's going to be because Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum combine for 60 plus points per game. I mean, that's how crazy it's got to be for those two. If Melo scores 20 plus points per game, if he averages 20 plus points per game, and then obviously stopping the fast break. We know that the Lakers love to just run and just throw the ball when they get a rebound or they get a steal. So if they can contain those, they can ultimately extend the series, possibly go 7, possibly win in 6. The Lakers, obviously, for them to win is making shots. We're hoping Danny Green and KCP show up in the bubble. We're hoping Kyle Kuzma's consistent. We know what we're gonna get from Anthony Davis and from LeBron James. we just need to make those shots. When they close the paint from LeBron, when they close the paint from Anthony Davis, when they kick it out to the three, they need to make those shots. Obviously, which gets to my second point, Danny Green and KCP are going to be vital for winning the series and for getting to the championship. They just need to make some shots. They need to play good defense. They need to make some shots. If they're not making shots, play good defense. If they're making shots, obviously they're going to be playing good. Perimeter defense, obviously I read that it was one of the worst perimeter defenses in the league. I do think that the Lakers, if they do defend the perimeter a little bit better, then they will be fine. So ultimately, I'm going to give the Lakers winning in 5, just because, again, there's no home court advantage. I do think the Blazers will split one of the 2 first games with the Lakers, but I think ultimately, as Damian Lillard gets a little bit tired because he's been going off for all these minutes per game, CJ McCollum obviously playing with a bad back, ultimately in the series, they're just going to get swallowed up because the Lakers ultimately have more depth than the Blazers do. So that's my personal opinion on the Lakers and the Blazers. That one's going to be my favorite series because I think Damian Lillard and LeBron James are going to go off with their scoring. So those are my playoff predictions. Hope you enjoy them. All right, now I know I kind of went really fast with the Jazz, Nuggets, Nets, Raptors, Sixers, Celtics. Again, this is just my opinion on who I think is going to win. I ultimately think these are the reasons why these teams are going to win, and these are the reasons why these teams can get upset. Obviously, I give the Jazz no chance. Missing Bogdanovic, huge loss. Nuggets are going to win in 5. Nets, Raptors, again, the Nets are playing with the pack of ketchup and mustard. And then Karis LeVert. Ultimately, the Raptors are going to swallow them up with their depth, with their shooting, with their defense. So I give the Raptors in 5. Sixers, Celtics, again, no Simmons. We'll see how Embiid plays without, Ben Simmons. We've never seen Joel Embiid without Ben Simmons in a playoff series. Tobias Harris, we don't know what he's going to do. Celtics are ultimately going to win in 5. Mavs, Clippers. Clippers in 6. I do think Mavericks will steal a couple games from them. Luka Magic, we know what we're going to get from Luka Doncic. And we obviously know what we're going to get from the Clippers with all their players and all their supposedly amazing scores that, everyone says that they have. Magic, Bucks, again, the Bucks have the reigning MVP, the eventual MVP. Again, not my MVP vote. But again, I don't think the Magic can really extend the series more than 5 games against the Bucks. Heat, Pacers, again, another exciting series. It's going to be very, very competitive. They're very evenly matched, in my opinion, but I think the Heat are ultimately going to win if they can minimize their scoring drought against the Pacers, and if they contain TJ Warren. So I give the Heat in 6. Again, Thunder, Rockets, Thunder in 6, because Russell Westbrook will be missing a couple games, which is going to hurt the Rockets. So I give ultimately the Thunder in 6. Blazers, Lakers, I just talked about that right now. Lakers in 5. Again, I just think the Lakers, they can go small, they can go big, they can go small with Markieff Morris, they can go big with Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard. So ultimately, I think the series might be close early on, but I think eventually as the series progresses, if it goes any longer, it's going to favor the Lakers. So those are my opinions. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm glad to be back. I will be back more often as the playoffs progress. I'll probably be back after game 2 of the NBA playoffs. So enjoy.